strut replacement on Hyundai Elantras, your girlfriend's car. Yeah, there's a lot of knocking and clunking going on. More than likely a strut mount is gone. If you don't have a spring compressor, there's no sense you bothering with dealing with a loaded spring flying up on your face, especially if it's a Sunday. We don't need any of that. So if this just so happens to be your car, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I can't say nothing. This is in fact my personal car. So yes, now the wife and I have his and hers matching Hyundai Elantras. The only difference with hers is black, which matches the color of her soul, while mine here is a light baby blue, which matches the how much of a free spirit I truly am. So here we are dealing with struts. So we got to get this unit out of here. A lot of knocking and clunking and tung noises when you turn the steering to the left or to the right. Usually that is a strut mount that will do that. Usually. So anyway, inside here there is a bearing, and there's, you know, we don't want to bother with any of this stuff. I'm telling you, I have before, and I mean, I personally do not recommend doing it. Your best bet, as somebody who just wants to fix the car and get it on the road and wants to do it in a timely manner, go out and buy a whole new strut assembly. The only difference is with this, if a strut mount is gone in it, it's a couple of bucks for a strut mount, plus you got to take it apart. Now, the problem with that is it's a lot of time consuming, a lot of dangers you got to worry about, but it saves you a couple of bucks. If your car has over 300,000 on it, buy a new strut. Don't bother with anything else. Just buy a new strut, comes with a new spring, it's preloaded, everything's done. All you have to do is put it in the car. So if you have a scenario like that where the mount is gone and you're cheap and you only want to pay the $10 or $12 for a new mount, that's fine. We're not going to do that here today. I don't recommend doing it either if you have a high mileage vehicle. I would recommend just replacing the whole strut assembly. It makes more practical, economical sense. The only downfall is these units are over $500 a piece. You got to replace them in pairs. You don't want to just do one. You want to do the two up at the front, and at a later time maybe do two at the back if you have a high mileage car. If you have a dead shock, you'll notice that there will be a lot of banging and clunking in the back end of these cars. I noticed that firsthand. This particular car does not have a dead shock in it, but they do go, and you will hear a lot of knocking and clunking noises as if you almost have like a bad body mount on a body on frame structure vehicle. You know, usually that happens when the car is rotten. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to take this strut off the passenger side, we're going to get it out, and we're going to install our brand new strut. It's very straightforward. $1,100 Canadian when you factor in the taxes. It makes me wish I would have bought this from Rock Auto. If I would have bought it from the Rock, I probably would have only had to pay about $560, maybe $600. Once I factor in my shipping, I kind of needed this now. I need to get a safety done on this. So, and I have exhaust work I have to do. Okay, so first things first, we're going to leave this alone. You're going to find yourself a cap on top of here. You take the cap off, okay, it just sits on there. Alright, don't bother with that. That's the nut that holds, that's a retaining nut that holds down your spring. There's like a pressure plate that holds down the spring and it keeps everything together. Don't touch that one. You want to deal with these three here. So anyway, what you can do first, starting off, we're going to go ahead and loosen off these bolts. You're going to notice that a 3/4 inch wrench will get you started on the nut. And I believe it wasn't a 3/4 for that. I don't remember. I don't have it over here at the moment. I believe it was an 18 mil anyway. So none of this has to come apart. The spindle assembly here is going to drop. You don't want to let it hang on the CV joint, so what I do is usually just grab a piece of mechanics wire and you know, just suspend it. Don't suspend it to a brake line. Try and suspend it to like a bracket here kind of thing. That's what I did with the other side. And we'll have to loosen off our sway bar link here. So what you're going to do is you're going to find yourself a Allen wrench that'll go into the stud, and then you're going to find a wrench that'll fit that. I believe that was also 3/4 as well. So you'll need to gather yourself some tools, any brackets. You'll have to undo those. That's a 12 mil down here that holds this bracket. There's a sensor on this side, and there's not a sensor on the other one. I don't think this car had anti-lock brakes, but I'm not sure what the sensor is for. It must be a wheel speed sensor of some kind. It does go into the hub assembly. So anyway, so grab yourself a few tools, and we'll get the wrench in here. Okay, so there's a 12 mil bolt that's holding this bracket, which just contains our brake hose and this wire here. There's also one up top. Now the opposite side doesn't have this, which is quite peculiar. There's no anti-lock light that comes on, so I'm not really sure what this actually is for. But anyway, it's probably more than likely a wheel speed sensor, and the car does not have anti-lock brakes because the roads were quite treacherous this morning, and I know that for a fact, that this car does not have anti-lock. So we'll go ahead and take that out. Just small little bolts, just set them aside, just like so. And we'll just hang those out of our way. You want to make sure that you're not going to be, when you go to loosen off the bolts in here, you're not going to be pushing against your brake hoses. So just kind of set that out of the way, out of harm's way, and we'll get started on loosening off these. If you have a good high, CFM air compressor and impact gun, you might be able to get those off, but if you can't, you'll have to loosen them off first by taking your 3/4 inch, have it set this way, and you'll have to push down on it and then take a breaker bar and loosen them off. That's what I had to do with both sides. Unfortunately, I don't have a high torque impact gun. That's just something I don't have. I just have the plain Jane here. It's not even a Chicago pneumatic. I think this is a Campbell Hausfeld. I mean, it's good. It did me good. It did me many years, but sometimes you got to use hand tools. Okay, so I'm going to loosen these off. I'm not going to take them all the way out. Now you'll notice that I have an extension bar here on my impact. These usually do never get along good with one another, right? An extension on anything, when it comes to pneumatic tools, they never, But it'll be enough to loosen this off. Now I don't want to take it out. I'm going to hold the wrench, and we're going to loosen them off. I'm not going to take them all the way out though yet. We're not ready for that. Okay, so I loosened them off a little bit. Now we're going to just, we don't want to take anything totally off, the nuts yet. We're just going to, work our way slowly. So I'm taking a 3/4 inch box end wrench. I'm going to install this Allen key in here. I'm going to loosen this off. But, if you have a longer Allen key, this will be better. This might get sore on your hands. But this is how you loosen them off. Don't take this nut all the way out yet either. We'll need to take this jack, put it under the control arm to relieve some of the tension. This is the torsion bar, or the sway bar, has a lot of tension put on it right now. So we definitely have to get the lower control arm to go up, compress the spring in a little bit, and relieve the tension off of this. I'll get into that in a minute. Alright, so once you get closer to the end, we'll have to position our jack. So that's about good, right, like that. We're going to go ahead and lift up the lower control arm to relieve some tension, and we'll continue to remove it. You don't have to go too high. You'll have to experiment with it. See, you can notice the stud starting to move. So we'll just hold it there, and we'll continue to, yeah, we can see that this is already loosened off. It's ready to come out. Hang it out of the way, just like so. Let it set on the outer tie rod end, and we'll get to the next step. Alright, so we'll let the jack back down a little bit and relieve some of the tension off the strut. And notice that I left the nut on a few threads. Give it a few taps to seize them. Alright, so I took the top bolt out, the bottom one is ready to come out. You don't really need the jack anymore, I just have it under there just to, you know, support the, you know, steering knuckle basically. I don't want this assembly to be moving around. So anyway, we'll just go ahead and take off that last bolt. This one was really seized. You might have that problem. If you do, you might want to carry some extra grade 8 bolts. If you have some lying around, that'd be great. This one here, it's been torqued. Even trying to loosen it off, I had a lot of problems with it, and I ended up twisting the head a little bit. So in my, like, for me, I consider this bolt pretty well compromised. I wouldn't want to reuse it. Mainly because I won't be able to retorque the bolt without collapsing the head further than what it already is. So if you have some extras lying around, you know, that'll help you a bit. So basically, I'm not using a cold like a punch here to drift this bolt through. I'm just kind of threading it out, the leftovers. So, you know, nothing to it. The knuckle is going to come in a little bit. You'll see that in a second. Okay. And a few more turns here. This bolt was really corroded. Usually you wouldn't have to do that. But because this one was in there really, really well, and this is what I mean by the collapsed head, it started to round off. That's the proper bolt, it's a proper fastener. But yeah, there was a lot of banging and just, you know, the head couldn't withstand the torque. So I mean, like, look at that. So I wouldn't reuse that. It's, you know, it's stripped. So, you know, if you have extras, if not, we'll throw that back in there, but then just to get you, you know, to the auto parts store to get another one. I wouldn't drive around with that in there, because you won't be able to get a proper torque on it. Okay, so you'll notice that the steering knuckle's ready to come out. So like I say, try not to let it suspend and hang on the CV axle. You have a piece of mechanics wire, take it around the caliper and just kind of bolt it to like this bracket kind of thing or somewhere. You know, just try and get it hung up. You don't want it to hang loose. If you have the jack under there, the jack might support it. That's why I like leaving a jack there, because sometimes you'll just get away lucky there in that aspect. Okay, now you can proceed to removing the top fasteners. Remember, don't touch the center one. And then what you're going to do, I need 2 hands for this, you're going to grab the bottom cup of the strut, and once you're loosening off your top bolt, you can, your final nut rather, you can remove the strut assembly from the car. Alright, so basically straightforward enough, right? It's very easy. So normally what I do is I take a wire brush and just kind of clean up the flotsam and jetsam at the bottom of the strut tower. I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, a lot of salt and whatever else sediment would sit up in there, and I don't know, I just like to clean it up and make sure it looks good. And we can go ahead and install our new strut assembly. So included in the new strut, you're going to find new fasteners. And the odd thing about it is that the fasteners are going to be a different size than the fasteners that you actually just removed. So I guess different manufacturers just use different sizes, but you will find new fasteners, so use them. You won't find new bolts for those, however, so you might have to go to your auto parts supplier if you do twist one. Hopefully you won't have to resort to torching one out. I've never had to do that. I've had them strip on me, there's no doubt about it. They do become seized, and, well, they do become difficult. Sometimes the driver's side is the most easiest. Another thing too, don't position your face directly above the strut assembly or the bolt, the top retaining bolt. Now once you get the top part in here, what you can do is proceed to, you can take this sticker off. You might not be able to actually get your cap back on there after, so you can remove that. I just usually just tuck it out of the way. What you're going to want to do is just kind of hand tighten your new fasteners just to hold the strut assembly in there while you maneuver the bottom end. Very straightforward. So a 15 millimeter actually for this. I don't know why I said 9/16 a minute ago, but anyway. Okay, so lining up our bolts. Like I say, you might need to work it a little bit, you know, but you'll get it eventually. So I don't have this type of grade of bolt, so I'm just going to have it in there so that you know, I can at least let the vehicle down. But I mean, like I say, if you do run into a problem like that, it might happen to you. You know, you'll have to get yourself a new bolt. You can't use that. Alright, so once you get all the fasteners tightened down, the vehicle back on the ground, tires retorqued, you might notice that the vehicle will sit higher than stock level, or you may not. It really all depends. One thing is for certain though, for the first few 100 miles anyway, 150 kilometers, just go easy on the car. If you live down a gravel road where it's got a lot of wake, you know, where the grader doesn't usually level it every so often, don't pound it. You know, just go take it easy for the first few miles until everything just seats properly. But after a while, you'll notice that the car will come back down to normal levels.